So we've just come out of the gate and we're out into we've got roughly 2 hectares of land here outside the fenced area. Grassland, and as you can see, it ain't very green, is it? Well, that's because of the heat that we've had. Now, we're in the middle of August. We've still not had any rain, and we only had 0.7 millimeters in July. So, as you can see, it's pretty dry. Now, we would normally get this cut, bale it up, and send it off for animal fodder or maybe bedding, depending on its nutritional value. And it's part of the EU scheme here, so we do get paid for this, but we've got to maintain it. Now, we've not had it cut because we do rely on a local guy to do it, but he's had his own problems. In as much as he's got to look after his own land and his existing contracting work, but he's been called out quite a lot to deal with local woodland and forest fires because he's got the kit to help the fire brigade deal with those things. So it's put everybody back by a long way, and there's an awful lot of this type of grass, we look through the gap there, that still needs to be cut and baled. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks or so we can do it. There won't be much in the way of use of this, but you know, has to be done. Now I'm intrigued by this because you might be able to make out here that there's a bit of a pathway there, and they're coming a little bit further up. We're walking towards the wind, so sorry if the mic's picking it up. I've got another one going in that direction and another one going in that direction. Now, this is the thoroughfare for the deer, and every morning, just as the sun's coming up, they all come through here. They come across, and they start following that path there, and they head off for the day into that wooded area where it's cooler, and also there's a huge trough of water. So now what we're going to do is pop back in through the gate, and I'm going to show you the rest of the space here because a lot of changes are coming. Now, naturally, as an extension of the front area, this whole space is extremely dry. So this has had no water for a good couple of months. July had 0.7 mil. We're in the middle of August at the minute. We've had no rain here whatsoever, and everything's suffering. So I'm going to show you what has been receiving a bit of water, what's happened in the vegetable garden, the disaster that you could say has caused it, and what I'm going to do about it. Now, this gives you a bit of an indication how dry it is, but we've got a bit of wildlife here, and we've also got this loon, Jack Sparrow, our one-eyed cat. Now he's got a friend, he's got a few friends. Got the next door's cat, which is fine. He's also got a pheasant that he's been playing with. We might bump into him later on this morning, we'll see how we get on. But here's a bit of a weird one for you. We've had temperatures in excess of 38 degrees Celsius here. Not quite sure what that is in Fahrenheit, I'll put it on the screen. So what did we have delivered last week? 5 tons of logs for winter. And you kind of like think, well, bloody hell, it's a bit warm. But yeah, look, I love the smell of this stuff. This is hornbeam. Like I say, just over 5.2 tons. And when I compare it to UK prices, a mate of mine's a tree surgeon there, supplies logs. He gave me a price the other day what they would charge over there, and this works out at being 40% cheaper than I would be paying back in the UK. So a bit of a result. Leave it here for another couple of weeks or so. My theory was that maybe if I leave it out here and have it delivered, a bit like washing your car, once you wash it, it rains. Well, that's not happened. Anyway, we'll get that stacked in the next couple of weeks or so. Great exercise. We'll have that in the wood store ready for winter. So yeah, you know, what are you thinking of winter? I mean, this lunatic. Hello, pushcat. So we're heading up towards the veggie garden, and we're taking the route that most viewers who are regular here are familiar with, going up the side of the house, and we're heading towards what was the old gate. And this is the view. Okay, now the plant that everybody has in their garden, in a veggie garden, courgette or zucchini. But 1, 2, 3. Now, also in there is, especially in this first bed there, the soil, we've left it. It's full of purslane. It's keeping the soil cooler. We've got a bit of purslane in there. We've also got beetroots in here. And these were attacked by those blister beetles, but they are doing okay. So we will get a crop of beetroots, despite the efforts of those blister beetles. And we've got some beetroots in there, and purslane, and they are being quite productive. If you can see here, we've got some starting there. I picked 1.2 kilos off this, sorry, 1.6 kilos off this area yesterday, and they're still going, so pretty happy with that. Now this is an area that I want to develop next season, and as I do that, there will be more videos about that, but basically this is going to be a new growing space, and I'm looking at bringing these boxes here across to here to expand this growing theory. And over here, this was a bit of a shock the other day. Now I did have, you might remember, a load of butternuts out here, and if you look, you can see the lines or the trails of the plants themselves. Now this got water every single day, and has had that for certainly the last 8 weeks, and it's had plenty of water. I came out to look at the leaves of these, and if you look, you can see that some of them are okay and some are a little bit yellow, and some of them just died off completely. And I was trying to figure out what was going on. I checked one of the fruits, and the fruit was so hot, and I meant, you know, I could hold it in my hand, but not for very long. It wasn't boiling, but it was hot. It was cooking inside, and I thought, well, that's no good. So I peeled them all off. They certainly weren't ready to be harvested. Long way to go yet for that. And now, I mean, I've got nothing left now, as you can see, but so we'll chop all this down. But it just demonstrates another issue that I've got with the heat. So this is the remains of my vegetable garden for this year. Looking quite sorry for itself, isn't it? I've got the new bed of asparagus there. They're such young plants. They are okay. I've got to continue watering it, but I've also got to keep it, get these weeds out of there. I don't want that to come back next year. I've got 2 beds of strawberries there that have really suffered. And then I've got a few beds there that are empty. And on that far bed, up to that tree line, there's really nothing in here. I've got tomatoes here. Now, if you remember, I had 2 rows of tomatoes. This one we had to rescue along with the pepper plants when we had the blister beetle issue, and I managed to get those out. This whole area was black with those things. They were just nasty. And now here, I had to leave these in here, and what I did was I sprayed them with neem oil in the hope that I thought, well, maybe I'm gonna rescue them. And my theory on this was, leave it, let it do what it wants to do. And okay, I'm beginning to get some fruits. So there's a couple of red ones I can see that need to be harvested. We come around this side. Same here. Now, this is an interesting point. I've got these tomatoes in the wrong alignment, shall we say, or position. Instead of them facing, at the moment they're facing south west to northeast, they really should be going east to west, so that they Plants themselves get more sunlight because they'll be facing the south. Bear that in mind, because that is going to be part of the new garden design. Now the other thing is, we did have some pepper plants in here, but we lost some, but we still got 3. And if we look closely down here, look at those. And there's quite a few in there, another one there. I'm excited about it because I wasn't expecting to see them. And if we come across to this one, you've got a couple down here. I don't know if you can make that out. But as we come up the plant, we've got the flowers, and we've got even more fruits developing. There's a lot on there. Now I'm actually watering this whole area with another soaker hose. You can probably hear that the mic is picking up the breeze, and having it as a sprinkler doesn't do this much good. It's not an efficient use of water, but there's a lot of tomatoes, growing in here, ready to ripen. I think maybe soon I need to be pruning back some of these foliage to get the sun on them, but these are in the wrong line, shall we say. They need to be turned. And in actual fact, in all of these beds, this whole space is going to be changing. Before we come on to that, I want to show you the cucumbers. Now, if you follow any of my social media on Facebook or Instagram or anything else, you might have noticed the other day that I put up a photograph of my cucumber harvest. I did that 2 days ago. And already, I need to be harvesting some more today. Now, my biggest concern with cucumbers this year was that last year they were an absolute disaster, a waste of time. And the reason why that was because I planted them out way too early. I made the mistake of following what I thought were the local frost dates. And I put them out along with a lot of the other squashes that got hit by late frost. Now, the app Your Growing Companion, I used that this year, and what it did was it told me the optimal time to put these in the ground as transplants. Another little beauty there, look. And by doing that, instead of relying on the last frost date, it was telling me the temperature. So I wanted it to be around about 10 degrees C. Perfect for these guys to go out. And as we can see from here, they're healthy. I mean, the leaves look a little bit manky, don't they? But I'm getting fruits like crazy, and there's lots of flowers on there still. And I'm happy about the fact that I was able to use the app to avoid any late frosts. Now, if we move up here a little bit, we can get across into there. Now, last year I used this cage to grow the tomatoes, and yeah, they were okay. And if you look, there's a volunteer tomato just there, but that's the back side of the cucumbers. And down here are the chillies and peppers. So we've got one here, another one there, and they do look okay. I want to try and get in a bit more. I've got to be careful where I stand. And if we look down here, there's some chillies on this guy. He's bending over a little bit. You see him? And also quite a few on there as well. I'm not really weeding this space. I need to protect it from the wind that's coming across from over there, which is the northeast, the sun and the UV rays, and keeping the moisture in the ground. Now this area, I use the sprinkler, and if you look at the ground you can see that it's a bit broken up. That's because the moles are coming through here as well, like they do down the front. So you can see where the cage is and where we were just now with the tomatoes. So have it in your mind, that tree line there coming all the way across to this tree line over here. That is a total length of 33 meters. That's relevant because as we go from coming up to this line here, so if you stand here, so if we go up to roughly where that tree line is, we come across to the base of that tree line, which right by that water sprinkler that you can see there, that is 21 meters. So we've got an area of 21 meters by 33 meters. The ground is very uneven and very dry. Now here's an interesting, all this wildlife, I don't know what it is. If you know what this is, let me know. I've got a hole there, I've got a little bit of a line, some kind of a rodent maybe, don't know. But anyway, all this area is going to change. So instead of having the orientation of the cage going like it is and the tomatoes like it is, it's going to be turned at 45-degree angles. So everything is going to be going from that point towards me rather than left to right. And 600 millimeters is another important measurement to have. And I'll come back to that in 1 second. Now I might have 40 years of experience growing organically in various locations around the world, and this one is my last location, and it's the biggest challenge, but I'm learning most days, and quite often I'm finding myself learning a little bit more from using AI. So I'm not frightened of AI. I treat AI more as a form of computer software, if you like. It's taken over from asking Google. I'm asking questions and I'm getting some very good answers. And I'm also following numerous videos on YouTube. And one I watched the other day, it was talking about compost. And as you know, if you follow me often, I've been looking at compost as a very important asset to have in the garden. And that's why I've got such a huge space for making our own compost. But how I use compost has changed considerably, especially after one video that I watched the other day. And I just want to point out something to you that you may not have already thought about. And we're going to a bed here that is, I would say, it's got to be 4 years old. Let me show you this bed. Now looking at this, there isn't really much to see here except for the fact that it's a slightly different colour to that. Well, obviously that's dead grass, it's grass that needs watering. But this is the compost that I've been putting on this bed now for certainly the last 2 years. I made this no-dig bed originally 4 years ago, and I grew carrots in there, and they're quite successful. The following year I grew tomatoes, so-so, because again, wrong orientation. And if you look at this bed, you can see top to bottom, it's going to be going that way towards those tomatoes. Now, look at this compost. What's the obvious thing? And if we go to this point here, that's still the compost. And basically, it could be argued that I don't have any life in the ground at the moment, which is true. Well, I do, but it's gone a long way down because of the heat. But after 4 years, that compost is still there. It's not been pulled down into the soil by the life. And the reason is, well, there's no nutritional value for it. Why waste the effort? It's the same here, although, because I haven't really done anything with this, but you can still see where these holes have appeared. The compost is there. It's not gone down. And I'm sure if I dug a hole, you'd see the levels. So applying compost once it's been made directly onto a bed, to me, doesn't really have a lot of use. So going back to that video that I watched, and also one that I did do the other week on the channel when I said about changing the way that I'm using compost, is that I actually don't think it's worth my while collecting green materials and brown materials, putting it in a heap, turning it, adding water, this, that and the other, and then taking it out and putting it on the ground as a finished compost for it not to be used. What is the point? Well, there isn't one. So I have an idea. So I've got all this space here. We've already said the dimensions, 21 odd meters by 33, coming across to that line there of the trees, and then I've got a little bit of a space there. But all this is going. I'm going to relocate the cage. So what am I going to do? It's going to be quite radical, and it's an opportunity for me to kind of wipe the slate clean, shall we say. My plans for this space are a result of a number of things: the heat, the lack of water, ease of maintenance, growing crops that we actually want to eat and we want to use and can use, and making it easier for me, bearing in mind that I realised after my episode with the gout, I need to be able to have a system in place that makes life easy for everybody that comes after me, so to speak, even with me. So what are we going to do? Okay, so remember what I said earlier on, 600 millimeters or 60 centimeters. Well, using AI, I've been able to redesign this whole growing space, and by doing so, it has actually produced me a plan that gives me more space to grow things than I have had, which sounds strange, but is actually the case. And what we're going to have is we're going to have it in rows, a bit like a market garden. So let's say here, for example, there'll be a row from where I'm stood now. So let's do that, and it will go all the way over there in as straight a line as I can possibly get. Either side of that will be another row of exactly the same width. Each row's width will be 600 millimeters or 60 centimeters. Now, one row will be the growing space, and the row to the side, either side of it, will be a wood chip path. Now that's one of the changes, because up until now I've been looking at the idea of having my paths as living pathways. In fact, there's a video on the channel talking about such a thing. But here's the thing. If I've got a living pathway, I've got to maintain it. It's an extra job. And if you're not well, or you're incapacitated, that can easily get out of hand. So a wood chip path will do a number of things. It will keep the temperatures cooler, it will hold moisture, keep the soil covered, and reduce that ambient heat that bare soil can produce, and obviously keep the weeds down. So overall, it's a low maintenance option, and also gives me some additional benefits. As the wood chip eventually rots down, I can add it onto the beds. Now the beds themselves, I'm not going to cover with compost. Back to my other point. I'm going to be using the green materials that I save, still using the bays that we have over there, but instead of being too fanatical about it being, oh, it's got to be compost ready, it'll be finely chopped, and I'll use it as a living mulch that will then allow the soil life to drag it down, which it's not been doing so far. So again, as that organic matter gets pulled down into the ground, more opportunities for the soil to be retaining its moisture. So this is the main manifold for the water and the irrigation, as you can see with the hoses. This is Jack's scratch post and lookout position, and they go back down to the house. But we want it to look nice. So walking up from that gap as we did earlier on before, coming in this direction, as we rotate round back towards the cage, there is going to be another path from here going straight up. So it divides the space into two. So we'll have the rows going top to bottom, and this main path, again 600 millimeters wide, going from here to the top. And I may well put lavender either side of this pathway, because if you look at this particular lavender, it never gets any water, it's been in full sun, and it's just now beginning to fade in its flowers. But that has been one hell of a food source for all the insects that can predate on any pests that I might get in this new growing space. So I'm back underneath the pavilion where it's a little bit cooler, but I'm still expecting to see in excess of 35 degrees Celsius today. The idea of this video was to give you a bit of a summary as to what's happened here in August. It's been tough. I'm sitting here and in front of me I've got some of these butternut squashes that I harvested the other day. And if you look, can you see that? That's the actual fruit inside. That's soft and it's been shrinking in the heat. It's just been too hot. Now I will be growing these again next year, but I'm going to be putting them in a completely different location. So stay tuned to the channel to find out where that's going to be, because it's not obvious. I just hope it's going to work. So there's a lot going on. I've learned a hell of a lot over the last couple of years or so here. The climate and the temperature has just been something else, and it has been a struggle. And in the last few weeks or so, with the injury that I picked up, it's shown me that things need to change, and that's my intention. So it requires a lot of planning. I've already got the main plan on paper, if you like, done. I now need to get or source the help that I need to bring it to fruition, so to speak, including sourcing 40 cubic meters of wood chip. So that's going to be interesting, bearing in mind I don't speak the language. So that's the state of the land, so to speak. It's still a challenge. I'm still learning. And there's a lot to do to redesign this space, to make it more productive, make it more resilient, and ultimately make it easier and more enjoyable. If you want to see how I get on, just follow the channel. For now, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.